The Iranian people have not only demonstrated that they want Pahlavi, but they also have demonstrated that they don't want this to be anyone else to be partnering with Princess of Pahlavi. In fact, many supporters of Princess of Pahlavi stood against him when he was creating a coalitions of leaders with Masih Ali-Najad and Abdullah Motadi and Hamid Ismailion. They were attacking their own leader. Like, we don't want these other people as leader. We don't trust them. We only want you as a leader, which eventually was the reason why that whole coalition broke apart. So the Iranian people are not just saying we want Pahlavi. They're saying we want Pahlavi and no one else. So Princess of Pahlavi is only responding to the request of the Iranian people, sometimes against what he himself has been advocating for, because he himself has been advocating for a coalition of leaders, but he gave in to the demands of the people. So everything Princess of Pahlavi does is in response to Iranian people's demands. So when it comes to the behavior of people online, a lot of people say that Pahlavi people are undemocratic. Just look at how vile they are, how much they're attacking and anybody who's not in support of Pahlavi online. This behavior shows that they will one day also be tyrannical and like dictatorial once they get some power. What they don't tell you is that this type of behavior comes from every side. Every side does this to other, like there are examples of all people swearing at each other online. What they also don't tell you is that the Pahlavi people are the only people among all of these groups that don't have physical violence in their record, right? So if you look at the reformers, they have terror and torture and physical violence in their record. If you look at the Kurdish groups, they have terror, killing of other Kurdish groups, and torture in their record. If you look at the leftists and the MEK, they have killing, terror, and torture in their record. But when it comes to the pro Pahlavi people, yes, sure. Do some of them attack everybody, like go around? I mean, I do that honestly. I swear at people who are anti Pahlavi. Okay, I don't even know why that's wrong. Okay, we get online. We gets very heated and we attack each other online. Right? They do that more than we do. But what our side hasn't done, which is actually, like, guys, even if at some point they do that, it will take years of Pahlavi supporters to be killing and torturing and raping, honestly, to be able to get to the level of all of these other non-Pahlavi groups. But but it's actually quite impressive that they don't even have. It's like, what I mean. Okay, they have one example of somebody fingering somebody. Okay, but other than that, other than that,
What
there is
the
no physical violence. Yeah,
wait, are you
yeah.
talking
Somebody
about
there
the
was
guy
there
that
were
got his ass fingered? It was a man, right? That got
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Other than that one small example, there are no examples of murder, there's no examples of torture, and there's no examples of beating anybody up, which is a very impressive, clean record of Pahlavi supporters, given that they are the highest number of people, right? So they have the highest number of people. So you would have thought that by now, I mean, given the law of large numbers, some of them are insane. At least if a few percentage of them would have done something crazy by now. So when they tell you like, oh my god, these Pahlavi supporters are so uncivilized, they don't tell you that they have a cleaner record when it comes to behavior than anyone else. One thing too much, by the way, has turned anti-Pahlavi. It's like very aggressively anti-Pahlavi. He came out and said like, "Oh, let me tell you about democracy. You have to listen to the minorities. Like, if minority voices are not included, then this is not democratic." Which actually shows that he doesn't understand how democracy works, because that's the opposite of what democracy is about. He is somebody who has been trying to cancel the revolution, telling people to go home and just start reading, because apparently Iranian people are too uneducated to do revolution right now. For the past year, he has been trying to cancel the revolution and telling people to basically leave the streets and go home and study books so that they become like educated enough to actually know what they want, because apparently they have chosen Pahlavi and they have chosen wrong. So too much himself shows that he doesn't understand what democracy is, because res- paying attention to minorities, that's actually liberalism, classical liberal values. That is not democracy. That is a limitation of democracy. Democracy is the voice of the majority. Paying like focusing on minorities is basically a limitation on democracy, a good limitation of democracy to avoid the tyranny of the majority. But that is not in line with democracy. That is actually a limitation on democracy. So that shows that the people who are saying, who talking about, oh, go learn about democracy, don't even, like, he spent 1 year reading books, but he still doesn't understand the definition of democracy and is lecturing other people about it. Wait, did I answer everything, by the way, Sabina? I think I went over everything.
I think so.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So yeah. Sorry, that took a long. It took a while, but I think that was I think the most complete explanation of what we're going through when it comes to these campaigns, anti-Pahlavi campaigns that we're having.
Think,
So just so that you all know, when we say we are for Pahlavi, that means we are for four things. These are the four things that Pahlavi stands for: democracy, over the right to self-determination; secularism; border integrity; and equal individual rights before the law.
Next, we have Shauna.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My question is, you may not even have any information or thoughts about this, but apparently Elon's going to be putting in AI and SpaceX and stuff into space, and he's planning on basically taking over the sky highway. Apparently, there's not a lot of, I can't remember the word they used for it, but essentially, if he can colonize not Mars, although that's long-term goal, but even just take over basically the super highway in the sky, he can impact that. And I just kind of, I don't know too much about it. I don't know if you know too much about it, but he's combining that with AI. And then the other thing too is, what are your thoughts just in general when companies are bigger than governments? Because one of the things we're seeing with SpaceX and this growth of AI and this new tech is I feel concerns about our democracy or a democratic republic in the United States kind of eroding and creating that sort of a situation where the people don't really have a say. I mean, already things are just like crazy centralized in ways that anti-monopoly bills were designed to stop, but they've just found loopholes that have functional monopolies. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. That's it.
Yeah. So, AI in space and Mars are not, Mars is so much farther away from the place that they would put AI in space. And the whole point of that is just to, apparently, is just to make sure that, because apparently is, according to them at least, it's going to be one of the main limitations of AI is energy and cooling, right? So if you put the processing of AI in space, you have a lot more access to solar energy, and also you could also re basically, the energy could then be distributed into space for cooling, so you don't have to worry about cooling as much as you have to worry about it in on Earth. That's the point of putting it in space. Some people have found a lot of problems with that from a
Yeah, I
scientific
do.
perspective, but
I do remember
yeah.
they were talking about the heating and cooling was the concern, but there's also not as much space in that area of space that you can colonize. So there's
I mean, you're
limitations,
not
just like the road.
colonizing; it's like empty
Well,
space.
I'm using the word colonize liberally. I don't mean it in a
I
literal.
mean, there's nobody living there last time I checked, so there's nobody to colonize, right?
Take
Yeah.
over, I don't know, build, like, if it's the analogy that I heard was that it's kinda like the railroads where the first person who gets there basically is going to control the rules of that
Um,
infrastructure.
Can I say
yeah, that's
something
gonna be
about it?
I would love that.
Okay. I don't think you understand how
short.
massive space is. Like, to the point that just between the distance of the moon and Earth, you can fit the entire solar system, like planets next to each other.
No,
Like, there's plenty of space.
I understand there's plenty of space in space, but there's technology. I'm gonna actually just do research on this so I can explain what I'm
It's
talking
okay.
about
I think
more.
we're getting off topic, anyways. Regarding companies and governments, companies getting bigger than governments. Honestly, I'm more worried about governments getting too big than companies getting too big. And I do think big companies are a good check on governments. I think companies getting too big is not a monopoly. because as long as they're not working with each other, a lot of people think that monopoly is just mean big companies are not monopoly.
I
Let
don't
me
think
let
big
me let me
okay,
actually
okay.
make. I know, I didn't say you, but let me finish my point. I'm just saying that there's no violation of anti-monopoly laws for companies to get as big as possible. And I think companies getting big means that they're producing something useful. That's how companies get big, right? So I'm against monopoly. I think it's good for companies to maintain anti-monopoly laws. But if giant companies are growing, but they're competing with each other while they're growing, well, then let them grow as long as they're competing with each other, right?
Okay, but what about when they
Um,
don't have competition? Like Amazon functionally has no competition. Half of the
Am-
country is dependent on them. And I think Amazon has done a lot of
Amazon
good
has no
things, but
Amazon has no competition on what product, and what service that they have no competition
delivery,
on.
like functionally. I mean,
Yeah,
everybody uses them.
Then
I'll add,
everybody uses. No, that's not true. Just because many people use them because they prefer their service, but there are other options. There are other options for delivery. There are many other options for delivery, but people use them because they prefer their service. That's not so. So here's the thing: you can't punish companies for providing better services, right? You
I'm
don't want
not
to punish them.
saying punish them.
But if a company is managing to get a big section of the market share because their service or their product is superior, the government getting involved and saying no to that is basically punishing serving your customers better than other people. We don't want to do that, right? We want to basically reward companies for having a superior product or service. Companies growing is a good thing because how do companies grow? If a company is growing, they only grow by providing a service or a product better than other companies. That's how you grow. That's how economies grow. The reason why America is a superpower is because it has the biggest companies. Like that's something that should be something that Americans are proud of. Look at Europe in the tech sector; it doesn't have a single company as large of American companies.
No, no,
That is something that America.
I
But
am, but
let me actually let me actually make my points, and then maybe you could get in.
okay,
Is that
okay,
okay?
okay. Yeah, I'll shut up for a second.
Yeah. Okay. So the main sources of power that we have to look at, right, are governments, companies, and individuals. But individuals basically, so this is what we have to be mindful of, right? So what we have to the centralization of power is something that we should be worried about. The power itself should not be something that we're worried about. Power, we need power. We need some centralization of power. So we have to come up with a balance of how much centralization of power that we want, right? Individuals themselves don't have much leverage because they're just individuals, right? But individuals get to have leverage as individuals through companies or governments. Companies are supposed to be a representative of individuals, and individuals represent themselves through these companies by their purchasing power, and they get their purchasing power by exchanging their labor for that purchasing power, or you know. So you give your labor. So the more, so in the market, it's not very democratic. The more you give, the more purchasing power you have, and the companies will be serving you, the companies through their products and services. The companies are both a source of you gaining that leveraging power because you give your labor to them to get that economic agency as a leverage of power. And then there's also those same companies are also a place where you use your economic agency that you got from the companies to then have an influence, have an impact by buying the product and services that makes your life better, right? So that is a non-democratic system. The more you give, the more you could take from it. But the companies are supposed to be a representative of our a source and also a destination of our economic agency. But then we have the government. The government is supposed to be an equalizing force where your wallet becomes less influential, not completely irrelevant, but less influential. And you, just by being a citizen, your government gets to act on your behalf. And with your vote, you have some political agency. So then with the companies as a representation of your economic agency, the government is supposed to be a representative of your political agency. So as in, if we people who believe in classical liberal values, we care about the individual. We want the companies to grow. We want the government to also be influential, but we want the government to become powerful. But we want, in both cases, the economic agency, the economic power of companies to not be centralized. So that's why we're against monopoly. And also the political power, we don't want it to be centralized as well. That's why we believe in Montesquieu's three branches of government, basically checks and balances and all of that stuff, right? So when it comes to companies, we want the companies to grow, but the best way to make sure that the power of the companies do not become too centralized is by making sure that they are competing against each other. So if one company is becoming so big, it's also competing against other big companies. And this is why we also believe in global trade, because even if you manage to become a huge big player in your own country, because the goal of these companies is to basically compete on a global scale, they have to worry about other companies from China and allowing other companies to come into your country and compete with the companies in your own country keeps your companies on their toes as well. Because even if you have dominated in your own country, you have to worry about a Chinese manufacturer coming into your country and competing with your cars that you're making or whatever. So this is why lower tariffs and free trade among different countries basically is a good way to basically stop monopolies, because you're constantly competing with other companies. Samantha, these thumbs downs is really not helping. If you have something to say, maybe write down why you're against it, put it in the chat, because I keep missing my point where I am. Like, write it in the chat so I could actually respond to what your point is, because just thumbs down is not like, I don't know.
Sorry.
Okay. No, but write your points, because I want to have something to respond to. But
She's
what
like,
was I? What was I saying?
boo! Can't
Boo! No. Every
this
time I
guy
say free,
sucks.
every time I say big companies, she's like boo. Every time I say free trade, she's like boo. Okay, it's okay. It's okay though. It's okay. We love you. We love you. No, keep doing it. It's kind of adorable. What was I saying? Oh yeah. When it comes to so with governments, we try to avoid centralization of power. With America has done a very good job to try to reduce the centralization of power. So you could come up with a structure of government that avoids that. But also the big companies also avoid centralization of power in the government. You know how? Because when your companies are growing, that's because your people are getting richer. So here's when you have democracy. Democracy is a result of the power of the people. Democracy is not just something that we wish for and it happens because we believe it in as a value. Democracy is the deterministic result of the balance of the people's power increasing relative to their government, so they have leverage over their government. And that power is economic. That leverage is economic leverage. If you actually track when countries become democracy, it's usually after the relative wealth of people becomes high compared to the relative economic power of their government. Democracy is a natural result of the people getting richer on average relative to the economic power of their government. So if allowing, when companies get richer, that's individuals getting richer, because that's your income, that's your 401k, that's your pension, that's your purchasing power that is getting bigger. The companies growing means that this main source of the government's revenue is tax income, because people are getting richer, they're trading more, and they have to pay tax more, and that makes the government answerable to the people. And that's why it's actually a good check on government, the power of the government, for people to keep getting richer and richer and your companies to get bigger and bigger. Because even if the government doesn't want to serve the people because the power has become too centralized, and the government has the idea that, oh, maybe I could basically become dictatorial and not serve my people, if you have really giant companies in your country, then it's in the best financial interest of these giant companies for everything to continue being the benefit of the people, because these people are their customers and their workers. So you could actually force your governments to become more democratic, because democracy is good for business. So big companies is a good check on government as well. So this is why I'm not against big companies. I'm against monopoly, but I'm not against big companies. And in fact, I want my companies in my country to be a force to be reckoned with, and my governments to be afraid of the private sector in my society. But okay, yeah, thank you, Samantha.
Okay.
But yeah, Shauna, sorry that took long.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't realize it was gonna open a can of arm talk. But okay, so I have a couple points about that though. What about during? Okay, there's a little bit of a problem with this, which is like during the kind of high level censorship years where you couldn't say literally anything until Elon, thank God, freed us. So, yes, sometimes a man, even a man that I don't necessarily like, can do a good thing. You know, heroes aren't perfect, okay? But he during that high censorship year, there was a concerted effort by both the big tech companies and by the government to censor Twitter. And this is still going on in England and the UK. So it I don't think that's necessarily the case, because all it takes is for a group of Puritans to develop a idea
That
and
let me just quickly answer this because the list is very long and my time is shorter usually than today.
oh, okay.
But that actually proves my point, because once when it comes to the private sector, at some point, if people want a certain product and it's not there, somebody's going to come offer it. And X came and offered it.
Okay.
It will only take that long. Yeah. But yeah, let's
Okay.
go. Let's go.
Okay,
to-
and then the other point is, I guess I disagree with you with
No,
the idea that individuals
let's go.
always debate individuals. We'll talk about this later, though.
Yeah, let's talk about this later.
Okay, next we have Susanna.
I was gonna ask you about Golshifte Farahani, but you basically already were talking about all of that. Shaheen Najafi had an epic video about it on his channel today, or it was yesterday. And the English to Persian subtitles are like surprisingly good. And that man is so on point. In other news, I've started to try to put together the PDF of information for survivors of torture in Persian. Like, getting a translation in Google Gemini is actually very easy and reliable. My problem is that I can't read Persian, so I can't format the PDF. So if there's anyone who wants to help me, you can DM me here on
Actually,
school.
Gemini does that as well. Tell it to format the PDF.
I don't know, but I can't tell if it's right.
Well,
I
then give
can't
it to
read it,
me.
so I don't know if it's any good.
Right.
Okay, Sapir.
Okay, continuing Susanna point with the PDF. I wanted to offer to make a drive or something that we can put all the videos, picture, witnesses, everything that we can gather. This is a thing that we personally already also did in October 7th, because I feel like there's so many things that are secular in the internet, some of them from other conflicts, and then people can use it to be like, oh, this is from another country, and so what's happening in Iran is not real. So I want to create a driver that we can just put all the verified imagery from Iran. So one, it can help all of us and anyone here that wants to post things, and two, it's also something that we can pass to media on obviously the consent of the person that adds it. So that's one thing that I would like to do, and I will put a link to a drive folder in the end of this conversation. Other than that, I wanted to see your opinion about what happened today with the 15 crew members that were kidnapped by the regime. And do you think there will be any international response soon? Because we know that from the US, they sent another naval unit, but it's obvious at this point that both the US and Israel will not act till the plan is pretty much perfect.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, for people who might just came here, so the Islamic Republic decided to attacked a couple of oil tankers right before the negotiations between Witkoff and Arakchi. They took a bunch of oil tankers and kidnapped all the crew members. Do we know the nationality of the crew members or not yet? Sapir, do we know?
I personally couldn't find it, but the moment there will be an update, I can let you know.
This is so unreal because to me, it's basically all the people who wanted to suggest that there's no point negotiating with the Islamic Republic. Do they need to say anything anymore? I mean, this is what they're doing right before the negotiations, right? It's like they're daring Trump to attack, right? Again, I mentioned to Jeffrey at the beginning of the stream that maybe they want the attack to start earlier because they think that the attack is inevitable, and just allowing the United States and Israel to prepare longer doesn't make any sense, and it's in their best interest that if it's going to happen anyway, to make it happen sooner. But Sapir, so what was your specific question regarding all
Do
of
you
this?
think if any other countries would say something about it, since it only happened today, we didn't really see yet any comments from anywhere else?
Well, that's why I was asking you about the nationality of the people involved.
Because
I,
we
I
don't know
must
yet.
say, yeah. So that's like, I think most countries seem to don't have the balls to actually defend their
To talk
citizens
about it,
as much
yeah.
as Israel and United States. Like these are the two main countries that I've always seen that do everything they need to do to basically bring their citizens home wherever they are. So given that we've seen European countries not to do much when the Islamic Republic kidnaps their citizens, I wonder how much, like, I wonder if they're going to do much when it's not even their citizen. I mean, they have such a bad record when it comes to actually speaking out for bringing their own citizens home, let alone for citizens of other countries.
The reason that
yeah.
I thought maybe there would be something is because of the recent few countries that started to be like, okay, now we designate the IRGC as not legitimate in a terror.
I mean, the European countries didn't declare IRGC as a terrorist group, even when the IRGC was busy kidnapping their citizens, right? Which countries are you talking about? Because now the European countries have already declared IRGC as a terrorist group.
That is, anyways, I am gonna make the drive real quick. I'm gonna post it here in the chat. If any of you have any messages that you got, any videos, any pictures you have saved that you know for a fact that from Iran, because I've already seen multiple things circulating from other conflicts, then put it there.
But by the way, I just want to mention that this reminds me that if you're Israeli or American, you have to consider yourself very lucky that you have governments that are disinterested in protecting you, because not that many governments are like that.
In Israel, we even have an app that is basically telling us throughout the entire world if there's something that might be in danger or a pro-Palestinian protest that is around. It alerts us to not go to those streets and stuff with the specific cities in lifetime, and gets updates from the government when we're
Which app
abroad.
you're talking about? Which app you're talking about?
It's an app for Israeli. Let me look how it's called again. Yeah, it's called the Situation Room, and it's basically, I can be like that.
10 seconds.
Yeah, basically the Situation Room. It's in Hebrew, but it's like basically
Okay.
alerts thing for Jews to get away from specific areas.